What if losing your job was actually the moment your real life was supposed to start? Most people never ask that. They spend weeks, sometimes months, refreshing their inbox, waiting on callbacks that don't come, quietly convincing themselves that their worth lived somewhere inside that job title. Nobody warns you about that part. Nobody tells you that a layoff doesn't just clear your calendar. It hollows out something deeper, something that felt like identity. Here's what's strange though. Some of the sharpest minds in human history, people who ran empires, survived exile, outlasted persecution, they all pointed to moments of sudden, brutal loss as the turning point. Not the obstacle, the turning point. That's what Stoicism has been quietly saying for over 2,000 years. And right now, in whatever uncomfortable place you're sitting in, it might be the most useful philosophy you've never fully applied to your own life. The Stoics weren't philosophers who worked from comfortable libraries. Marcus Aurelius ran Rome through plague, war, and betrayal from people close to him. Seneca was exiled, stripped of everything, and eventually forced to end his own life by a paranoid emperor. Epictetus was born into slavery. These weren't men theorizing about hardship from a safe distance. They lived inside it. What they left behind wasn't just wisdom. It was a manual for surviving the worst. So today we're walking through 7 Stoic truths. Not the kind that sugarcoat your situation or hand you empty pep talk energy. The kind that don't pretend this isn't hard. Because it is hard. Losing your job in America right now isn't just a financial hit. It's a psychological earthquake. The routine vanishes. The social structure disappears. That sense of moving forward, gone overnight. But here's what doesn't disappear. Your ability to choose what you do next. That's the first Stoic truth. And it might be the hardest one to sit with. When you're in the middle of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his private journal. A journal he never planned for anyone to read. That has somehow survived nearly 2,000 years. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing that for an audience. He was writing it for himself, on days when the weight of the world was literally sitting on his shoulders. And the fact that he had to remind himself, a Roman emperor, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, says something important. This doesn't come naturally. Choosing your response over your reaction is a practice, not an instinct. When the layoff comes, whether it's a cold email, a brief HR meeting, or a call you didn't see coming, your body doesn't stop to consult philosophy. Cortisol floods your system. Your thoughts race toward worst-case scenarios. Your brain starts replaying every meeting, every review, every moment you maybe should have handled differently. That's not weakness. That's just how humans are wired. But biology isn't destiny. And that's exactly where the Stoic framework becomes useful. Think about someone you probably know. Maybe it's even you, who got laid off and within a few months had built something better. A different career path. A business idea they finally had breathing room to pursue. A clarity about what they actually wanted that years of routine had buried. That shift didn't happen because they stayed positive. It happened because at some point they stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and started asking, "What can I actually do right now?" The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. The idea is simple, but it cuts deep. Divide everything into 2 piles. What you control, what you don't. Your former employer's decision, not yours. The economy, not yours. The timing, not yours. But your mindset, your next move, your daily habits, the way you show up tomorrow morning, entirely yours. This isn't about dismissing the pain. It's about where you put your energy. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Sit with that honestly and you'll recognize it. The spiral that happens at 2 in the morning, that's not your actual situation. That's your mind running worst-case simulations that may never arrive. The Stoic move is to come back to what's actually true. What is real right now today? Right now, you're still here. Your skills didn't disappear when your badge stopped working. Your experience didn't get deleted when they walked you out. Your network, your judgment, your ability to learn and adapt, all of it still belongs to you. No layoff touches any of that. And that recognition, that quiet, grounded understanding of what is genuinely yours, is where the way back starts. In the parts ahead, we'll go deeper. How the Stoics handled shame, how they rebuilt purpose from scratch, how they used stillness as a tool, and how some of the most remarkable recoveries in history began in exactly the place you're standing right now. But first, sit with this: the event already happened. What comes next is still being written. And the person writing it isn't your former employer, isn't the market, isn't anyone's opinion of you. It's you. There's a specific kind of pain that hits after a job loss that nobody really prepares you for. Not the financial stress, though that's real. Not the uncertainty about what's next, though that sits heavy too. It's the moment you're at a family gathering, or you run into an old colleague at the grocery store, and someone asks, "So what are you up to these days?" And for just a second, you freeze. That freeze, that split second of internal scrambling, that's shame doing its work. Quiet, invisible, and genuinely damaging if you let it run long enough. And in America especially, where the first question at almost every social event is, "What do you do?" Losing a job can feel like losing your entire answer to who you are. The Stoics saw this coming. Not job loss specifically, but the human habit of outsourcing identity to things that exist completely outside ourselves. And they had a response that was clear, direct, and honestly a little uncomfortable to hear. Epictetus wrote, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life." That sounds almost too calm for someone lying awake at 3 in the morning doing math on their savings. But look at what he's actually pointing at. He's not telling you to pretend everything is fine. He's not asking you to perform happiness. He's identifying something more specific. The war we wage against reality when we refuse to accept what has already happened. That war is exhausting, and it costs more than the loss itself. Here's the second Stoic truth: shame is borrowed pain, and you can choose to hand it back. When you feel ashamed of your situation, you're agreeing with a story someone else wrote. A cultural story that says your value is your output, that your worth is your salary, that a person between jobs is somehow less than a person with one. The Stoics would call this exactly what it is: an opinion. Someone else's opinion, absorbed so deeply over time that it started feeling like fact. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly: "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Read that again slowly. We love ourselves, but we let acquaintances, colleagues, even strangers define our self-worth. We trade our own peace for other people's perception. The job title, the company name, the LinkedIn headline, these become armor we wear against outside judgment. When the armor comes off, we feel exposed, raw. Like everyone can suddenly see something we've been hiding. But here's what's actually true. The people who genuinely matter in your life, the ones who will still be around years from now, they are not calculating your worth based on your employment status. And the ones who are, they were never really in your corner to begin with. Think about how this plays out in the American experience specifically. There is enormous cultural pressure here to fuse personal identity with professional achievement. From the time we're teenagers, we're asked what we want to be, not who we want to become. School, college applications, the career ladder, all of it trains us to see ourselves as human doings rather than human beings. So when the doing stops, the being feels lost. The Stoics believed the opposite was true. They built their entire framework around something they called virtuous character, the idea that who you are at your core, how you treat people, your honesty, your courage, the way you behave when nobody's watching, that is what defines you. Not the corner office, not the quarterly bonus, not the title that used to sit under your name or company emails. Seneca wrote something that cuts right through the noise. It is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who hankers after more. That applies to identity too. It's not the person between jobs who has lost themselves. It's the person who built their entire sense of self on a foundation that an HR decision can erase in 15 minutes. So what does a Stoic actually do with shame? They examine it. They hold it up to the light and ask honestly, is this actually mine? Or did I absorb this from a culture that confuses achievement with worthiness? Here's something practical drawn directly from how the ancient Stoics lived. Seneca had an evening ritual he kept consistently. Each night he'd ask himself 3 questions. Where did I go wrong today? What did I do well? What could I have done differently? Not as punishment, as honest self-examination. No drama, no spiral, just a clear-eyed look at the day. Apply that now, but broader. Ask yourself honestly, what did the job actually give you that you cannot rebuild or find elsewhere? And separately, what did you bring to it? Your skills, your time, your creativity, your commitment, the problems you solved, the people you helped. Those came from you. They still live in you. They walked out of that building with you on the last day. The resume gets updated, the LinkedIn profile gets a refresh. But what you're actually carrying, the accumulated experience, the hard-won judgment, the things you figured out the difficult way, none of that fits in a termination letter. Here's what the Stoics understood that modern career culture keeps forgetting. A setback only redefines you if you agree to be redefined. You don't have to accept the story a layoff tells about your value. You are allowed, and according to Stoic thinking, genuinely obligated, to write your own account of who you are. The shame that follows job loss is real. It shows up uninvited and it's heavy, but it is not permanent. And more importantly, it is not yours to keep. Hand it back, and keep walking forward, carrying only what actually belongs to you. There's a particular kind of stillness that moves in during the first few weeks after a job loss. The alarm you set for years suddenly has nowhere to be. The morning routine that held your entire existence together, the coffee, the commute, the back-to-back calendar, evaporates overnight. And what fills that space isn't freedom, at least not at first. What fills it is a silence so loud it becomes its own kind of pressure. Most people run from it immediately. They refresh job boards at 6 in the morning. They rewrite the resume for the 4th time in a single week. They stay busy, not productively busy, but anxiously busy, because sitting still with themselves feels too uncomfortable, too honest, too close to questions they aren't ready to answer yet. The Stoics thought differently about this. That uncomfortable, disorienting stillness. They didn't see it as something to escape. They saw it as something to enter fully. Because inside that silence, if you're willing to stay with it long enough, is some of the most important information you will ever receive about yourself. This is the 3rd Stoic truth. Stillness is not the enemy of progress. It's where real progress actually starts. Marcus Aurelius didn't just manage Rome through its most turbulent years. He also kept a rigorous practice of inner examination alongside all of it. Every morning, before the weight of empire descended, he wrote. Policy decisions, not strategy. He wrote to himself, questioning his own assumptions, examining what was driving him, stripping away everything that was performance, and getting down to what was real. His meditations weren't meant to be published. They were a private conversation between a man and his own conscience. And what he returned to, again and again, was this: the quality of your inner world shapes everything that happens in your outer one. Before you can rebuild anything outside yourself, you need to actually know what you're building toward. Here's where this gets urgently practical. The American job market rewards speed. Update the resume fast, apply broadly, network hard. Move before the gap on your resume starts raising eyebrows. Some of that urgency is legitimate. Bills are real, timelines are real. But what almost always gets skipped in that rush is the most important question available to you right now. Did you actually love what you were doing? Not in a vague motivational poster kind of way. Specifically, concretely, did Monday mornings carry any genuine sense of purpose? Or were you trading hours for a paycheck and calling it a career? Because if the honest answer is no, and Stoicism demands honesty above almost everything else, then rushing straight back into the same type of role, at the same type of company, without pausing to examine anything, isn't resilience. It's avoidance wearing a productive disguise. Seneca wrote one of the most quietly devastating lines in all of ancient philosophy. He wrote, "It is not that I am brave, but that I know what is not worth fearing, and I know what is." Most people fear the gap after job loss, the blank space on the resume, the pause in income, the uncertainty of not knowing what's next. But what Seneca is pointing at is something worth fearing far more. Arriving at the end of your working life, having never once stopped to ask whether the direction was actually right. The Stoics also practiced something called memento mori, the deliberate remembrance that life is finite. Not as a morbid exercise, as a clarifying one. When you genuinely sit with the fact that your time is limited, the question of how you spend it becomes much harder to wave away. A job that paid well but drained everything else. Was that actually a good trade? A career path you stumbled into at 22 and stayed on because leaving felt risky. Does that path still make sense for who you are now? These aren't comfortable questions, but they are the questions the silence is offering you right now, if you're willing to listen. Here's what Stoic stillness looks like as a daily practice during a job transition. It doesn't require retreats or expensive systems. It needs 20 minutes in the morning, before the job boards, before the email, before the noise of the day takes over. 20 minutes where you sit with 3 honest questions. What do I actually value? What kind of work makes me lose track of time? And what have I been tolerating that I no longer have to? That last one is worth sitting with, because one of the real gifts buried inside job loss, and yes, there are gifts, even when they arrive wrapped in the most frustrating packaging imaginable, is that you are no longer required to tolerate what you were tolerating before. The manager who made everything harder, the company culture that rubbed against your values every single day, the commute that swallowed 10 hours of your week, the role that used maybe a third of what you're actually capable of. You don't have to go back to any of that. But you almost certainly will, if you never stop to look at it clearly. Epictetus taught his students something that sounds almost radical in a culture obsessed with output. He taught them that the most important work a person can do is inner work. Not because action doesn't matter, it absolutely does, but because action without clarity is just motion. And motion without direction is exhausting in a way that's hard to explain until you've lived it for long enough. There's a real difference between being busy and being purposeful. America celebrates busy. Stoicism has always cared about purposeful. So here's what the third truth is actually asking of you. Before the next application goes out, before the next section of the profile gets updated, take 1 honest hour. Write down not just what jobs you're qualified for, but what kind of work genuinely lights something up in you. Write down the moments across your career, even small ones, when you felt useful, engaged, actually present in what you were doing. Those moments are data. They're pointing at something real. Then write down what you kept doing out of habit, or fear, or financial obligation. Work that left you feeling hollow, even when the performance reviews said you were killing it. That's data too. That's the road worth examining before you walk back down it. The stillness after job loss is not a void, it's a clearing. And in a clearing, for the first time in possibly years, you can actually see which direction is yours. The Stoics never promised that kind of examination would be comfortable. They promised it would matter. 2,000 years of people finding their way back suggests they were right. There's a moment that happens somewhere between the first week and the first month of unemployment that almost nobody talks about openly. The initial shock has worn off. The supportive texts have slowed down. The LinkedIn post about being excited for new opportunities has been written and quietly forgotten. And what you're left with is something far more raw than any of that. You're left with doubt. Not the productive kind that pushes you to grow, the heavy kind, the kind that sits on your chest at 2 in the morning and whispers that maybe this wasn't bad luck. Maybe this was judgment. Maybe the people who made this decision saw something in you that you've been hiding from yourself. Maybe you're not as capable as you always believed. Maybe the career you're trying to rebuild isn't one you were ever truly meant to have. That voice is not your conscience. That voice is not wisdom speaking. That's fear, and the Stoics had a very specific, very direct way of handling it. This is the 4th Stoic truth. The obstacle is not blocking your path. The obstacle is your path. Marcus Aurelius wrote something in his Meditations that has survived nearly 2,000 years and still lands like it was written this morning. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Most people read that as a motivational line, something nice to put on a poster and forget. But Marcus wrote those words as a sitting emperor, dealing with actual military invasions, actual plagues, actual betrayal from people he trusted with his life. He wasn't writing poetry, he was writing a survival strategy. Stop treating the hard thing as separate from your journey. The hard thing is the journey. What you do with the obstacle is what determines everything that follows. Now put that directly against where you are right now. The job loss is not a detour from your story. It is part of your story. And depending entirely on how you respond to it, it may turn out to be the chapter that defined everything that came after. History backs this up in ways that are hard to dismiss. Steve Jobs was removed from Apple in 1985, the company he built from nothing. By any external measure, that was a failure, a public, humiliating professional loss. What he did in the years that followed, building Pixar and eventually returning to lead Apple through its most transformative era, didn't happen in spite of that loss. It happened because of what the loss forced him to confront, reconsider, and rebuild. The obstacle became the path. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper early in his career, told he lacked imagination, had no good ideas. The obstacle became the path. Oprah Winfrey was let go from her first television job as a news anchor, told she was too emotionally invested in her stories. The obstacle became the path. These aren't coincidences strung together to make you feel better. They're a pattern. And Stoicism explains the pattern with precision. When everything runs smoothly, we coast. We settle into comfort. We stop pushing the edges of our capability because the system rewards us enough to stay exactly where we are. It's only when the system pulls that reward away, when the paycheck stops, when the title disappears, when the safety net is suddenly gone, that we find out what we're actually capable of producing on our own terms. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." He meant that literally. The mind that has never been genuinely tested doesn't know its own strength. The person who has never been forced to rebuild doesn't know what they can build. You are in a strengthening period right now. It doesn't feel like the gym. It feels like the floor. But the floor is where you find out what you're made of. And that information is worth having. Here's where this truth becomes a daily practice rather than just a good idea to nod at. The Stoics believed in voluntary hardship, deliberately doing difficult things not because life demands it, but because difficulty builds the inner resources you'll need when life eventually does demand it. Seneca practiced this himself. He'd spend periods living as simply as possible. Plain food, basic surroundings, no comfort he didn't need, not as punishment but as training, so that when hard times arrived, he already knew he could handle them. The fear of deprivation had already been examined and found smaller than imagined. You're living an involuntary version of that practice right now. And the Stoic response is to engage it rather than just endure it. What does engaging it actually look like day to day? It looks like structure when structure has been stripped away. It looks like choosing every morning to treat your job search as a professional commitment. Not when motivation shows up, but on a schedule, with intention, with consistency. The Stoics were serious about discipline, not because they were rigid people, but because they understood something that comfort culture tends to miss. Discipline is freedom. When you control your daily actions, no external circumstance can take away your sense of forward motion. The days stop blurring together. You stop feeling like things are happening to you and start feeling like you're moving through them. Engaging it also looks like honest inventory. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining worst-case scenarios not to spiral into panic, but to strip away the fear of them. So try it directly. What is the actual worst realistic outcome here? Not the catastrophic version your brain runs at midnight, but the honest, grounded worst case. Sit with it. Look at it clearly. Then ask yourself, could you survive that? Could you adapt? Could you find a way through even that outcome? Almost certainly, the answer is yes. And once you genuinely know that, once you've sat with the worst case and recognized you could handle it, the fear loses most of its grip. Because the fear was never really about the worst case itself. It was about the unknown. You just made it known. There's also a concept the Stoics called sympathia, the understanding that nothing happens in isolation, that every event is part of a larger pattern you cannot fully see from where you're currently standing. The loss that feels like a dead end may be, from a wider view, a redirection. Not because life is arranging itself for your comfort, but because the path you were on may have been narrower than the one now opening in front of you. You can't see that yet, you're still too close to the loss. But the Stoics would tell you, with the calm certainty of people who survived far worse. That clarity comes to those who stay grounded, stay consistent, and stay honest with themselves through the hard passage. The doubt at 2 a.m. is not telling you the truth about who you are. It is testing whether you know the truth about who you are. Don't answer it with argument. Answer it with action. Get up tomorrow with a plan. Work the plan. Let the obstacle become the path. Because on the other side of this, and there is another side, you won't look back at this period as the time you lost something. You'll look back at it as the time you found out exactly what you were built for. There's something that happens to people who come through genuine hardship. Not inconvenience, not temporary discomfort, but the kind of deep disorienting loss that forces a complete rebuild from the ground up. Something shifts in them. Not while they're still inside it. You can't see it from there. But afterward, when they look back at who they were before the loss and who they became through it, there's a recognition that's hard to put into words but impossible to miss. They became someone they couldn't have become any other way. That's not a consolation prize. That's not a reframe designed to make the pain feel more acceptable than it is. That's a documented, observable truth about human growth that the Stoics identified 2,000 years ago, and that psychology has spent decades catching up to. People who come through serious adversity with their integrity intact, their values clarified, their sense of purpose sharpened, they don't just recover. They rebuild into something more honest, more deliberate, and more authentically theirs than what existed before. That's where the final 3 Stoic truths live. In the rebuilding itself. The 5th truth is this: purpose is not something you find. It's something you build, deliberately, daily, through action that lines up with what you actually value. Epictetus, who spent the early part of his life as a slave with no control over his physical circumstances whatsoever, understood something about purpose that people who've always had comfort rarely fully grasp. He wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Not find what you would be. Not wait to discover it, decide it, then act like it's already true." That's a different instruction than what most people receive. The cultural message is to follow your passion, as though passion is a destination you arrive at, rather than a direction you actively choose and keep choosing. The Stoics didn't believe in waiting for inspiration to show up. They believed in picking a direction that matched your values and walking it with enough consistency and enough courage that purpose naturally grew from the walking itself. So what does that look like practically right now for someone rebuilding after a job loss? It starts with an honest values conversation. Not the corporate HR version of that exercise, but a genuinely uncomfortable sit-down with yourself about what you actually care about. Not what pays well, not what sounds impressive. What matters to you when you strip away the expectations that have piled up over years of trying to meet everyone else's definition of success? Write it down. Is it autonomy, the ability to make your own decisions about how and where you work? Is it impact? Being able to see clearly how your work changes something real in the world? Is it mastery? The satisfaction of getting genuinely good at something that challenges you? Is it connection? Work that puts you in meaningful contact with other people? Most people have never written this down honestly. Most have spent entire careers chasing titles and compensation packages without stopping to ask whether those things were actually delivering what they fundamentally needed. You have that chance now. The slate isn't blank. You carry everything you've built and learned, but the direction is genuinely open in a way it may never have been before. That's not nothing, that's actually a lot. The 6th truth follows directly. Rebuilding is not a solo project. There's a deeply American myth around the self-made individual, The person who asks for nothing, shows no vulnerability, pulls themselves up through sheer personal will, and emerges stronger alone. It's a compelling story. It's also, according to both Stoic philosophy and basic human psychology, mostly fiction. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire, but his meditations are full of gratitude toward the people who shaped him. He named them specifically, what he learned from each one, what he owed to their presence in his life. He didn't see that as diminishing his own capability. He saw it as an accurate account of how human development actually works. No one builds anything meaningful entirely alone. Acknowledging that isn't weakness, it's just honest. In practical terms, your network right now is not just a job search mechanism. It's a genuine resource for perspective, accountability, and human connection when isolation is pulling hardest. Reach out. Not with a transactional message angling for leads, but with actual human contact. Tell people honestly where you are. Ask for conversations, not favors. Be willing to be seen in an unfinished state, because the connections that actually last are built on honesty, not performance. Find communities of people navigating similar transitions. Online or in person, it doesn't matter much. Share what you're learning. Ask questions without pretending you've got it figured out. The Stoics built their entire philosophical tradition in public. The Stoa was an open gathering place where ideas were examined out loud, together. You were never meant to figure this out alone, in a room with your laptop and your anxiety. The seventh and final truth is the quietest one, and maybe the most powerful. Gratitude is not a feeling you wait for. It's a practice you choose, and it changes the quality of everything. This is probably the hardest truth to sit with, when financial pressure is real, when rejection emails are stacking up, when the uncertainty has been going on long enough to feel permanent. Gratitude can sound like toxic positivity, like someone telling you to smile while the house is on fire. That's not what the Stoics meant, and it's not what this is asking of you. Stoic gratitude is not about pretending things are fine when they aren't. It's about deliberately turning your attention toward what remains, what is still true, still available, still genuinely yours, even inside the loss. Marcus Aurelius did this consistently. On days when he was managing military crises, political betrayal, and personal grief at the same time, he'd return in his writing to what was still there. His ability to reason, the people who had shaped him, the simple fact of another morning to try again. Not because his problems weren't real, because gratitude kept his mind clear enough to actually deal with them. Try this tonight. Before you sleep, write down 3 things that are still true despite the job loss. 3 things that have not been taken from you. Your health if you have it. A relationship that is genuine. A skill you spent years building. A morning that still showed up. They don't have to be grand, they have to be real. Do it again tomorrow and the day after. Not because it fixes anything overnight, but because it gradually shifts the lens through which you see your situation. From what is missing to what is still available. And from that shifted perspective, better decisions get made. Clearer paths come into focus. The next step, which feels impossible from inside the spiral, becomes simply the next step. You came to this video from somewhere hard. Maybe the layoff just happened. Maybe it was months ago, and you're still finding your footing. Maybe you're watching because someone you care about is going through it, and you're trying to understand what they need. Wherever you're coming from, the Stoics have something worth hearing. Your circumstances have never been the full story of who you are. The version of you that existed inside that role, that company, that title, that was one expression of you, not the whole of you. The rebuilding ahead, uncomfortable and uncertain as it feels right now, is an invitation to express something truer. Something that was always there, but never had the room to fully come forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself on a hard day, in a journal nobody was ever supposed to read. Confine yourself to the present, not the job you lost. Not the future you can't see yet. The present, this moment, this choice. This one small action that is entirely within your power to take right now. That's where your way back begins. If this reached something real in you today, share it with someone who might be sitting in the same place you were when you pressed play. It costs nothing, and it might matter more than you know. If even one of these truths landed somewhere useful, the like button helps more people find this when they need it. And if you want to keep going deeper into this kind of honest, grounded Stoic thinking, subscribe to Stoic Origin. There's a lot more coming, and none of it will waste your time. See you in the next one.